All right, everyone, we are live. Welcome back to the KrysisKorner. I'm Krysis Diamago, and this is your slice of the internet where we talk about all things gaming. Today's interesting person from the internet is the honcho of DarkZero Esports, Zach Matula. Zach, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you guys are moving the team to Vegas and everything else, and you just had the new signing with NJR. We're talking about how you just got in from Vegas last night. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it, man. Happy to do it. Yeah, the team's been in Vegas actually. Though we were one of the first ones to move there. We were, I think we've been there about 6 months now.
Ahead of the curve, man.
Yeah.
All right, so before we hop into all the fun stuff, fans of the KrysisKorner, you guys know we got some bill paying we have to do around here. This episode, like all episodes, sponsored by Clutch Energy. If you guys want to check out a brand new energy drink made for gamers by gamers, you can go to disrupted.gg, ! Clutch in chat. If you're watching this later on YouTube, there'll be a link. Use code Krysis, get 20% off. Also, all through 2021, any revenue brought in by that code Krysis, is being donated to able gamers. This year, all year long, 2021, all revenue brought in by my Twitch channel is being donated. So any donations, anything from bits, subs, all that's all being donated. You guys can see up at the top, we have a goal that we're trying to reach before the end of the year. So if you guys can, and when you'd like to, go do that. You'll help a great cause, get yourself some energy, and we'll go from there. But that all being said, Zach, we're here. It's a lovely Saturday. And how you doing, man?
I'm good. I just got back from Vegas. I'm a little bit worn out. I got started. This is the last thing I'm doing this weekend. I'm gonna have a lazy weekend on the DZ Rust server that I just put up. You're here first.
All right. Well, we won't waste any time then. We'll let you get back to Rust. But first things first, let's talk about esports in general. How long have you been a fan of esports, and kind of what about esports made you be like, I want to make an org, I want to be a part of this? And what specifically drew you to Siege as an esport?
It's a long question. I mean, it's a long answer I've got for you. We
got time.
I love gaming. I've been a gamer my entire life. I've actually been on the internet before there even was an internet. I had a bulletin board service back in the early 90s, and so I've been a nerd geek video game player forever, as long as I can remember. Competitive gaming is a lot of fun. I've enjoyed that. I was really into StarCraft early on when the early esports scene started. So I love gaming. I love competition. Always been, a fairly competitive person. And I started my career as a trader, commodity trader. I did that for about 10 years. Then I rolled into being kind of more of a private equity investor, which is just, matching up money and opportunity kind of a thing, using my own money, other people's money, things like that. Esports started to sort of, I was always aware of it, but it started to become more and more of a viable business. And so we decided, I think in May of 2018, let's explore starting an org. And I think one of the big reasons we started an org, frankly, is that we didn't really like a lot of what orgs were doing at the time, and just felt like we could do things a little bit better or a little different, and I think that you probably see that in the way that we do business now. We don't spread ourselves super thin. We focus a lot on a particular game, not to say that. So having a single game isn't the business model. Having a high capacity per team, sort of a high org capacity per team, that is the business model. And so, we just sort of looked out and said, hey, I think we could compete here. I think we could do something a little different. And start doing our exploration and sign the SK roster, and I think the rest is history.
Yeah, speaking of that SK roster, you guys signed them right after they were dropped. SK kind of it wasn't like, oh, the team was performing poorly or anything like that. SK decided that they wanted to step away from FPS style esports, is what the statement that they made. But many of the orgs in Siege have established themselves elsewhere in the esports world, right? You have SSG, FaZe Clan, which is huge in Call of Duty, Evil Geniuses, Rogue, which is a really big organization. And it's safe to say that DarkZero kind of came out of left field, right? Obviously, you guys were a brand new org, but you guys were an instant hit with the community, right? Everybody loves DarkZero. I see that DarkZero Leviathan skin in game probably more than any other Pro League skin. So
Good.
Obviously, there's a massive amount of support.
I'll get one.
It's obviously a massive amount of support from the community. What do you think caused people to be drawn so quickly to an org that really had no recognition? I mean, you guys were brand new, but instantly were a click with the community. What kind of things do you think were going through people's heads?
Well, I think that I think that we knew that we were coming out of left field, and we knew that we're a complete unknown to the community. And oddly enough, I actually have one of the first videos that I pulled up when I was exploring the Siege scene, the Siege Esports scene, was, and this would have been in like 2018. I saw a video King George had put out about, and I don't remember the org, but it was him basically lamenting that they had been promised, a team house, and they didn't get it, and the org relations were bad, and this sort of speaks to our core concept of DarkZero, is that we want to support our teams, we want to fulfill our promises, we want to do things the right way. So actually, one of the ways that the beginnings of DZ was rooted was meant to be like promises delivered. So if you remember, our announcement video, our announcement of not just the team, the entire org, was the delivery of a team house to the SK roster, right? It was them moving into the house. So look, I mean, I also think it's clear that most fans don't really care about orgs so much as they care about players, right? And so the point being, not that orgs can't have an important role, but the community wants to see you take care of players. They care about the players, right? It's sort of like, hey, these are our guys, and now they're going over to you. Like everyone knew about Mint and Bacon and Hot and Poge and all those guys that we signed when they came on. Nobody knew about us, right? And so, that I think just like anything else, they want to see that you're doing all the right things and taking care of their guys that they're fans of, and that's always been super organic for us, because again, it's core to our business that we take care of our players. So that's my hope. I mean, that I think some people who support us because we try to do the right thing. But we certainly can't anticipate everybody to like us for that. And so, I mean, one of the secondary things that we do is we try to deliver victory to the fans, right? We make no qualms about it. We're not a casual gaming organization. We're not an organization that prioritizes content, although I enjoy content, but we prioritize competition, and we try to deliver victory to our fans. And so we've always had a competitive team, and we're like, we just made a roster change recently. It's something that will never stop with us. We will always strive and do whatever it takes to deliver victory to our fans. So my hope is that if I was on the outside looking in, I think that's what I would appreciate about an org. And we've been overwhelmed too by the support of the community. It's actually pretty insane, given that we are one game org. If you look at the engagement on socials, you look at how fans support us through our skins and our merch sales and following, and it's pretty crazy. So we feel tremendously connected with the Siege community, and we'll always be a Siege warrior.
Yeah. Speaking of the support, I mean, you and I'm not quite sure if you remember because you were incredibly busy. We met in passing at Raleigh during the signing. You were taking pictures of the fans coming up and getting autographs and stuff from the team there. The line to meet DarkZero was, if you guys weren't in Raleigh, this thing wrapped around like twice in order to meet DarkZero. I mean, it was like that for a lot of the NA orgs because this was the first time an NA major had been held that wasn't in Canada, right? It was on the east coast of the US. So a lot of the NA teams had a lot of people there, but DarkZero's like, luckily I had a media pass and a VIP badge, so I could get up there really quickly and avoid that whole line. A little bit of a humble brag, but the line just stretched, and the DarkZero jerseys that you saw, I mean, there was so much support there for the org. And again, so the 2019 major, you guys as an org, the team had been around for a while, but as an org, you guys were still fairly new, about a year into Siege at that point, roughly, I think. And just to see that amount of support, it's crazy. I mean, whether or not you're a DarkZero fan when it comes to Pro League, to see the amount of people, you gotta respect the pull and the draw that DarkZero has and has continued to have. Like I said, even now in 2021, all the speaking of merch, I can never get any; it's always sold out. So, but yeah, that's it is cool to see, because I feel like not enough orgs. Like you said, people like the players, not the orgs. But I think with DarkZero, I'm not saying they don't like the players, but I definitely think, like you said, the mentality and the family atmosphere that you guys have at DarkZero is really a huge pull for that. Because if you're part of the community, if they see like the bullpen cam that you guys have during Pro League and whatnot, people see that and they're like, wow, it's like a bunch of brothers just hanging out and playing Siege and stuff. They feel like they're a part of that family, and I think that might have something to do with it as well. As DarkZero isn't an org maybe so much as it's a Siege family type thing. So, but let's talk about some of the things you were considering when picking up your pilot team for the Siege Pro League. Of course, SK had just dropped their roster again. Not that their roster was bad. SK had performed pretty well throughout their time there. They were flip side even before that. What was it about? Was it just right place, right time? SK was a good roster that needed an org, and you guys were an org that needed a roster? Or what were some of the things that you were considering when picking up that org to be your first team?
I felt tremendously lucky because at the time, this was when EG was really dominant in the space in North America. Rogue seemed to be sort of living in their shadow, and SK was kind of a bit of a distant third. So I think I did what anybody reasonable would do, knowing that hey, we want to go pick up a roster. Okay, let's go talk to a ton of people in the scene, which we did. I went out, met people, shook hands, took people to dinner, things like that. Just helped to understand, what is it like, who's worth looking at, like tell me about the squads, what are the pluses and minuses. And so at the time, we knew we wanted to get a competitive squad. So the list that we were looking to acquire was EG, Rogue, and SK. Those were the three. And actually, a lot of people told me, not a lot, but a few people told me, look, you need to get EG and SK, right, if you want, because we've always had this goal, like, we're going to bring home a hammer. I'll say it here, we're going to bring home a hammer. It's going to happen. And that's always the goal, and that's always it's been the goal from the beginning. So they're like, look, if you want to do this, you've got to pick up EGRS or Rogue. And I talked to all three rosters. We talked to all three, and I came out of that, and actually SK was my favorite. And the reason is that we knew we wanted to build a culture We knew we wanted to build a culture around hard work and organization and discipline, and really take a step back and recognize, like, look, guys, because even there's been even a cultural shift between then and now, where people are starting, and more people are taking this very, very seriously, right? And the level of competition has risen. But even 2 years ago, I think there were a lot of people in the scene that were just sort of resting on their talents, and saying, hey, look, I'm really good at Siege, and I can step in, I can be a pro and win some tournaments here and there, and I'm happy with that. But we wanted to set the tone out of the beginning, right out of the gate, that we were going to take this seriously. And I think what I've said to the team, and I've said over and over again, is, look, if you want to be the best in the world at anything, it really doesn't matter what it is. If it's esports, or if it's world-class chef, or a trader, or whatever, name it. It's never going to be easy. There's no such thing as being the best in the world at something, and
right.
So we need to find to ourselves out of the gate, this is going to be hard. Like, we know this is going to be hard. And I'm gonna tell you, like, after our initial conversations, the SK guys, I was talking a lot with Mint at the time. Mint, Pot, Poj, Jarvis, and Nix was the squad. Jordan Bacon was the coach. They were into it, man. They were freaking into it. They were ready to get to work. And even though people were telling me, like, these are the more talented squads, I came out and said, I want SK. They were our number one choice, and it just worked out with their org. They hadn't actually, just a small point of clarification, they hadn't actually dropped them. They were shopping them behind the scenes a little bit, like, hey, if there was interest to another org to sell them, but they had not dropped them. They were still the active SK roster, and it just sort of worked out that SK was open to discussing transferring the roster, and we picked them up. Another thing that was a bit of serendipity is we knew that with that initial roster that we were going to have to bring in some more talent. And actually, what was really interesting and ended up being one of the best things that's ever happened to us is we picked up SK, but we always knew, we're like, I want BC. I was like, I want BC. And so I'm going to pick up SK, and then I'm just gonna try to buy, B from EG or whatever. And as it turns out, like Jordan and Brandon are good friends, and it turned out that just out of nowhere, and I was just sitting at my desk one night, and Jordan shoots me a note. He says, hey, I think Brandon wants to retire from comp. And and if he leaves EG because of that, he can come over here and coach. And I was like, that's a miracle. Yes, sign him. So that one just sort of fell in our lap. But there's definitely been some luck along the way.
Yeah, I think speaking of Bacon and BC, I mean, those two back to their EG days, they were kind of like the partners in crime. Bacon was the coach, and BC, obviously Troy, Canadian, was kind of like the IGL, the main shot caller, but BC was a lot of the brains behind the strats. And I had a chance to sit down and actually talk with him a little bit in Atlantic City back in 2018 when we could go to LANs. And the guy just understands Siege at such a different level. You look at some of these players that understand Siege at this level. BC's one. Fabian from Vitality is another one. Obviously Canadian understands the game at a very, very deep and core level, and it's crazy to kind of just pick their brains a little bit and get little, as a casual player myself, just get little tips and tricks from them that you'd be like, oh, I never thought of that, or I never would have thought to do or play like this. And it's BC is definitely, I think any team would be lucky to have him on a role, and like you said, you got him, so and he seems happy where he is. So yeah, I want Brandon to grow. He's going to be he's our Siege coach and GM, and there's actually a differentiation there in my mind. Like, he really manages the entire program for us from start to finish, and it's not just Siege actually with him. Like, he is
they say that he's knows Siege more than anybody in the world, and I don't know Siege enough to comment on that, but I will say that
neither do I.
I will say that he's brilliant and hardworking, and I want to take Brandon's not just Siege model, but model on competition in general, and how to train, how to look at competition, how to sort of take esports seriously. And my goal for Brandon is that he rolls into something more like a chief gaming officer, head of competition type role at the org once we start onboarding other teams, because I want, like I said, I kind of halfway joking in a tweet not too long ago said I'll build this entire organization around Brandon, but I'll do it. Like he's brilliant, and what he does with our Siege team is truly impressive, and as like I said, as we onboard new teams, he's going to be a major part of that as well.
As we discussed earlier, we talked about DarkZero as an org going all in for their players, but not just the players, the staff as well, obviously. You guys were one of the first to go public with long-term contracts. That was a very famous tweet that caught a lot of, we'll say, attention, whether it was positive or negative. You guys were one of the first ones to have the team house, which, again, there were other orgs that had kind of, I remember the King George video because I was a Rogue fan. I was a King George fan, and Rogue actually picked up King George's team from that org. So I remember that whole debacle. But you said when you created the org, you were like, we can do this better, and we need to do this better. Why is it so important that orgs take this level of care of their players and their staff?
I think I can answer that question on a couple verticals, but I would like to address, just since you brought it up, the long-term contracts thing. And we read all the feedback, positive and negative, on the long-term contracts. And to be frank with you, I think it's all really fair. And the bottom line is, I think that and this speaks to exactly what we're talking about. The bottom line is our community is used to seeing orgs come in and have these really unfair long-term contracts with their players, right? And then or content creators, I think we all remember what happened with like the Tfue situation and things like that, where and they're right. I mean, it is but it's so dependent on the contract and the org. And I would just encourage people, yourself or anybody budding esports talent, influencer talent out there, read your contract, man. Like, read your contract, understand it, get somebody to like go over it with you, like really understand it. Because the point is, if it's a good contract, a long-term contract is good. If it's a bad contract, a long-term contract is even worse, right? Yeah. So that's the point, right? Like, a long-term contract isn't good or bad fundamentally. It really comes down to, is it a good contract or is it a bad contract, right? And so my point is, we definitely heard that. I get it. I mean, but at the same time, we have some of the best contracts in Pro League. I think we have the best contracts in Pro League. Obviously, I don't get to see them all personally, but you hear things and we kind of get a sense for what everyone else is doing. And all our players are employees. They get health insurance, dental, vision, financial services. We help them with their taxes. All these things. So they're good, fair, more than fair contracts, and so we're happy. And the flip side to that is, we like to invest. Well, you know this about DarkZero. We want to, a lot of orgs will jump in and out of games and go, okay, let's test this out, and then it's like a year later, I don't want to be there anymore. We make our entries very deliberate, so it's sort of like, if I'm going to be here, I want to be here. I want to be here next year. I want to be here the year after. I'll be the year after. And some of that does require you to know that you're going to have a team, right? It's just sort of part of what is required. But anyway, I wanted to speak to that since you brought it up. But Remind remind me what the question was. I kind of took us off on a dirt road there.
No, that's fine. So you guys were also one of the first ones to have like a legitimate team house.
Roger.
For the team as well. And it's just kind of like when you see a team and you give them like that kind of level of support, why is it so important for orgs to take care of their players and their staff as well to that level?
Gosh, there's so many reasons why. I mean, there's so many reasons why. One is, like I said, there's a couple of different verticals here. One is just simply ethical considerations of treating your employees right, I would say. I mean, I'd say, we want to be there for them. We understand too that a lot of people, like, they'll move out of mom and dad's house into the esports house, right? So it's hard for me to support somebody I've never met before in person or I'm not there with. So face-to-face communication is the highest bandwidth of communication, right? So if you're there on the ground every day, you really get a sense for what's going on, who needs help, who you can support when, things like that. But I mean, I'll be frank, it's not wholly altruistic either, right? So we like to build what we consider like a high expectation, high reward culture. Is kind of how I put it to our employees and team. The expectations at DarkZero are much higher than they are,
right?
Unquestionably, and literally every player that's ever come over has said that. I'm sure we'll be getting that from NJ here real soon. Well, he's getting indoctrinated as we speak. But it's a high expectation, high reward culture. It's like, look, we're all in. Everybody here is all in, and so the org benefits from that as well. We get to, like, my content creators are on the ground. I have a shooter on the ground, an edit bay on the ground, capturing content. Lonnie Lightning was just there for 2 weeks on the ground, right? And it's just sort of like we want everybody together, and there's just sort of these emergent opportunities for content. We also believe that we can support them on the comm side through systems and IT and things like that. So it all sort of just synergistic and works, right? Mm-hmm. To have everybody in the same spot. So it's support on a lot of levels. I think it helps them. I think it helps us.
So speaking of content creators, you guys have a few under the DarkZero banner. Get Flanked is one of the most well-known ones. He's a friend of the show and was on the podcast. And you brought up Lonnie Lightning, who I don't ever think is really on the ground. I think he floats about 6 inches off the floor at all times. But so let's talk about DarkZero with content creators, because you guys also do your own content. The series you guys do, the behind the scenes series, you guys do like the fun little games where it's like the guess my rank and stuff like that. But when you look at content creators that you want to sign to the DarkZero brand, for any future content creators out there who want to potentially make a living as a content creator, what are some of the things that you as an org owner look at to sign them to your brand?
Oh man, I don't know if I'm actually giving good advice here or not, because I think likely the way that I sign content creators and the way FaZe Clan signs content creators are probably two very different things. I think that there's the obvious, the more common way is to just sort of look at reach and your numbers and all that. The things we all know about. I honestly just sign content creators that I think are funny and talented. It's just that simple for me. I don't go much out of my way to like try to figure out what other people are like. I just like, hey, look, if I like it, there's somebody else is gonna like it too, right? So I just Dylan is and there's two different kind of stories here too. Dylan, Get Flanked, is he's an OG, man. He has been around since before DZ really was even a thing. Right. Dylan was the guy I reached out to interview, I believe, Brandon, like for our launch. And we were like-minded. I think we like each other. You know what I mean? We're friends. We banty back and forth, and it just sort of was natural for Flank to be a DZ guy, right? And so he really honored us really early on. Again, back to the luck of the draw, but he really honored us early on because Flanked is a major contributor in the CG sports space, and we were nobody.
Absolutely.
Right. And so for him to come to us and be like, hey, like I want to sort of work with you guys, be a part of this, I was like, yeah, done. You know what I mean? I didn't even think about it. Lonnie came later. Well, we had Roy, who went to SSG. I'll get him back. Love Roy. we shared. We're both Aggies. Went to the same college and everything. He's a good guy. He actually doesn't live far from me. And yeah, I just loved Roy. I thought he was funny. I thought he was talented, and we signed him. And then, I mean, come on, man, Lonnie, you just can't. Whatever, man. If somebody didn't think Lonnie was funny, I would just be like, whatever. I don't care. Like, I think he's hilarious. He just gets me rolling all the time. He's tremendously talented. There's really nobody like him.
No.
In CG sports either, and there's very few like him in the world, right? That are really streamers and content creators rarely fully make the dive into being entertainers, right? They're kind of more personalities than, but Lonnie is a full-blown entertainer all the way. And so he's so versatile. He's funny. I love him. Like so I love having him as a part of DarkZero. That it's as simple as that with him. I just think he's great.
Yeah. So my first interaction with Lonnie Lightning ever, I knew who he was. I don't watch a lot of streaming, especially over the last year with COVID and everything, which we'll kind of get into that as well. But he actually raided me one night on stream. We were playing on Outback. We were playing ranked, and it was just such a wild experience because his community, his chat was just going off and everything. And I remember I was like, guys, please don't expect any, great gameplay. And they're like, oh, we don't expect it from Lonnie either. And I was like, if this is the community that this guy has, then I need to check this dude out. And from the moment I watched his first stream that I watched, I was hooked, man. The guy's so funny. He's able to keep it, even when he's losing in Siege or getting stream sniped or beat by cheaters, he still finds a way to flip it and turn it into entertaining moments for his community and stuff. Lonnie's a really good dude. Flanked, on the other hand, he's also a good dude, but I had a in-person meeting with him. I met him in Raleigh, and again, he was on the podcast. He also is more, I would say, analytical than Lonnie is, but Flanked is also...
It's a low bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Flanked is also, like you said, he's an OG Siege content creator, man. I mean, he was one of the first in the scene, and he's lasted. That you see a lot of content creators kind of pop and fizzle, but Flank's stuck around the entire time, and continues to grow, and he has his own successful podcast, which is great. He just had the SI moment, which was huge for him, and everything like that. So it's safe to say that you guys got some pretty solid content creators on your hands there. So, but speaking of COVID, obviously over the last year, it threw a lot of plans away, threw a lot of wrenches into plans. What has it been like working and living through this pandemic, especially, the esports side of things is a little bit different. You guys travel a lot. Obviously, you've been to Japan and Europe. You've played all over the world. That hasn't happened for over a year now at this point. The last LAN that we had that wasn't the NA finals was Invitational 2020, I think. Yeah, so it's been over a year at this point. How has that kind of worked for you guys, and how do you, as the owner of an org, I mean, you have your employees and everything else, what do you guys kind of do to try to keep morale up throughout such a hard and trying time for a lot of people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll preface it with, like, there's been some really hard hit industries, right? And I don't think in the broad scale of things, esports has much to complain about. But having said that, we weren't unscathed at all. I know the gaming industry at large has done well during COVID. Makes sense, right? People are at home playing games. Yeah, esports has suffered, and the truth is, esports is a global product. It's a global product that had to be forced into being a regional product for over a year now, right? I think it's especially sucked for NA too, because NA, we do see these regional ebbs and flows, and I personally believe that the last year NA has definitely been the strongest region in the world. To me, there's no question about it. My unbiased opinion, but I think NA has sort of hopefully not missed our time to shine on the global stage. You know what I mean? I don't really see that happening. I think the top of NA is still really, really strong. But like I said, it's, these guys, they thrive on the competition. They thrive on, meeting their fans, being exposed to their fans. They haven't gotten to do that. They haven't gotten to prove themselves on the global stage. So yeah, it gets repetitive. Like I feel like we played TSM and SSG 1,000 times this year, right? It's just kind of like, okay, like we get it. So yeah, I mean, it has suffered, and it's tough. People can't get out, see their families, things like that. We've definitely tried to just stay focused. Stay focused, keep your powder dry, man. Get ready, because it's coming, and it is coming. Like, don't get distracted. Like, let's go and focus on the task at hand. And that's been our broad strategy. There is just sort of, we're just sort of getting ready for the comeback of esports, and particularly Siege esports.
So at the time I wrote this question, the SI had been suspended indefinitely, but now we know it's been announced it's going to be played in May, in place of the event that would have happened then. So let's kind of talk about the Sixth Invitational for here a little bit. Obviously, it was supposed to have actually ended a week ago, Sunday. So it didn't happen, obviously. That had to have been pretty crushing for some of the guys who've been working so hard to get to this point. DarkZero has been one of the top contenders in NA. They definitely earned their spot to go to Sixth Invitational. When you guys first got the news, and it was like a week before too, hey, it's not happening, what was kind of the general mood around the team and the organization?
I'm sure you could guess. It sucked, man. It sucked. Yeah, nobody was happy. I mean, we understood why, so it wasn't like we were like upset with Ubisoft or whatever. It just is what it is. It's just another knock from COVID. So yeah, we took a little bit of time off, or the team did, because they boot camp really hard going into those big events, right? So they typically will take time off after a big event, because they'll put in some super long weeks heading up to it. So we just went ahead and took a little time off, everybody clear their head, before getting back to the grind. But yeah, no, it's a bummer, man. These guys, like I said, they're here to compete, and so when they can't, it's frustrating.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point, not blaming Ubisoft. Something tells me that Ubi was fighting tooth and nail to the very end to make that happen.
Unquestionably. I can tell you that from inside knowledge, that they were working day and night to get that thing done. Get it done safely, and it's a tightrope, right? I mean, you want to get it done. Everyone's clamoring to get it done. You also have a pandemic going on, right? And so you got to both get it done and get it done safely, and it's a tough spot for them. And this one, frankly, was just out of their hands, right? The French government shut things down. Not a lot you can do about that. So yeah, but they did everything they could.
So continuing with SI, since we do have an official announcement of when it will be happening in May, what team would you like to see your team go up against the most? Obviously, I'm sure TSM is at the very top of that list, because you guys never play them in the NAL. But what team would you most like to see DarkZero go up against?
I was excited to see us play G2. We have never played G2 as an org, ever. It just hasn't happened. And there's a history there where Mint and Pangu played each other. I don't want to misquote it, forever ago, and that's it. And also huge respect for their squad and everything like that, and obviously we'd like to play that. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But international competition is always fun, and there's a lot of cool matchups and things like that. You get to see all these conversations become reality, and you get to debate about who's going to win what, and you actually see whether it happens or not. But yeah, I guess I'd go with G2.
Yeah, as someone who has a G2 jersey sitting right over there, that was a match that I was looking forward to as well. Especially G2 seems to be back to what G2 once was, and Taro called them the most dominant team to ever play Rainbow Six Siege. And that whole stretch of Penta to G2, they really were. They were the New York Yankees.
I don't think
the
that
Patriots.
Any questioning that. I think they are they're the only team roster that I would say has established a dynasty within Siege. I think the only one, right?
Yeah.
We've seen teams win a series of events, they'll win maybe 3-4 events in a row, which is that's really hard to do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting that. But those guys, I mean, they won everything for years. I mean, it was nuts, and so they have a long-standing legacy. It's definitely something that we look up to as an org and as a team, and say, look, this is it's only happened once in Siege. Who knows if it'll happen again? Which are like for it to be us.
Yeah, I mean, when you have 5 years of competition and a team has won 3 years of all the competitions, that's pretty safe to say that they're pretty good at that point. So, how well do you think DarkZero would have done at SI? Would you guys have brought home that hammer from France?
I mean, look, yeah, I think so. I think we would have. And let me say this: like, we have the last time that we have been able to field a healthy roster was the August Major, which we won. Right? We've had some pretty serious health issues on the team. We've just gotten so unlucky that way this year. It's been pretty nuts. I think we announced publicly that Paul had to have a surgery right before stage 2. We had another, I can't go into details, but we had another serious medical issue right before stage 3, and it's been tough that way, man. It's like you feel like, so I think we definitely have the capability. Our highs, in my opinion, are some of the highest in the world. Consistency has been an issue. Part of the reason we made a recent change, and that's not to say that was being created by Matt at all. Matt is actually one of the more consistent players on the team. It's just a roles issue. So yeah, I mean, look, at DarkZero, the squad we had before SI or the squad we have now, we have the capability unquestionably to bring home a hammer. And it's really just about showing up, and having and being ready. And yeah, I think we had every opportunity to bring home the hammer that last run.
I will say, when DarkZero is on, there are very few teams that can hold a candle to your squad. I mean, the amount of times that you guys have went 7-1, 7-2 in NA League, just running through people, and we're not even talking about some of the, we'll say bottom 4 teams. We're not going to say lesser teams. We'll say some of the teams in the bottom 4. But even against the top heavy teams, even against TSM, SSG, and OXG, those top 4 heavy teams in NA, DarkZero has consistently been at the very top of NA. And like you said, when you look at NA, Europe for a while was the most dominant region, but now I think Europe has become so evened out with their skill level. Whereas NA, there are 4 powerhouses in NA currently, and nobody's toppling those 4. And again, that's DarkZero, SSG, OXG, and TSM. That's the other one. So I think,
well, that's easy at TSM for sure.
Yeah, I think, I honestly think that NA had a chance at a repeat. Maybe not SSG necessarily to repeat bringing home the hammer, but I definitely think NA out of all the regions had the best shot, because even the Altiora crew that came through in the qualifiers, they were just came out of nowhere and started smashing teams left and right, and they were going to be my favorite team to watch throughout this whole event. And then of course, you know, their team is now orgless, but they can still perform in the Invitational, so I'm still interested to see what they'll do there. But so chat, this is going to be my last question that I have for Zach. If you guys have any questions, we have a little bit of time left. If you guys have any questions you would like to ask him, go ahead and put them in chat now. But my last question for you, Zach, the future of Siege. We obviously had the Year 6 panel coming up, that was shown off. Year 6 Season 1 is currently on the test server. I've been playing a little bit of that. That's fun. Where do you think Siege is going to go in the next year, 2 years, 3 years? And then to piggyback off of that, what do you see for DarkZero in the next 2 to 3 years as an org?
Yeah, we're tremendously bullish on Siege, generally speaking. I think that Siege Esports has, you know, suffered from COVID, just like, you know, a lot of other scenes. But, you know, we went through a rough meta time too at the same time. In my opinion, Ubi is making some real adjustments, some very real adjustments, and they're doing the things that we want to see them do. In my experience, Ubisoft is they listen. You know, now they are a bit of a, you know, they're a big company, so it takes time to turn that boat, man. You know what I mean? But in my experience, they do listen. You know, and I think that we're on the right path. I think that they're committed to shifting the meta a bit away from where we were that 20-second meta that really nobody liked. The game's already getting better. They're adding a lot of features to the game that are very cool. They broaden their horizon. I mean, when we first started, it was, you know, 2 operators on a map, bow, like that's it, right? And that's what you're getting. And really, if you think about what they've been putting out in the last months, the scope is much, much wider than that, you know, with the ping systems. And I'll tell you too, like you know, there's some very cool things on the horizon too. So everything I know, both that's public and not public, very excited about the future of Siege. And we think that it's really gonna kind of come roaring back. As soon as we can start having these international competitions again, man, it's gonna be white hot.
So, talking about Siege for a little bit, what about DarkZero as an org? In the next 2 to 3 years, where would you like to see DarkZero kind of be? You did kind of mention picking up a few more teams because you want BC to kind of take part of that. Do you see yourselves maybe branching out within the next 2 to 3 years? And if so, what esport team would you like to hop into the most, do you think? Obviously, contracts, NDAs, all that, you can't give away too much, but potentially if you could hop into an esport, what would it be?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't think I want to answer that.
Okay, that's fine.
But I will say 100%. We're gonna be another esports. This was an internal task that I gave us as an org, and like I've always said, I want to have a high capacity for the org per team, right? Because it doesn't matter if you've got 100 employees, but you have 20 teams. Right, and you're just spread really thin, and you can't support your team the way you need to. It's really more about your ratio, right? How much org capacity do I have versus how many teams do I have? And I'll be honest, it's actually just been in the last few months that we've been able to take a step back and go, okay, like I feel good about where we're at. I feel good about our ability to bring on another team and support them properly and not get spread too thin. So I know that the DarkZero growth story has been on pause, like especially in public. You know, people wonder, but really, the growth initiative for us internally has really only started in the last few months. But it's going to happen, and it's going to happen real soon. So stand by.
Okay, so we got a couple questions here. My buddy Midas, who actually plays competitive, how does Zach feel DZ will adapt to the new, potentially attack-sided meta inbound with the new season? You and I kind of talked about this a little bit before we went live. You know, obviously you guys signed NJR, who's a certified gunner. The kid just doesn't miss. So how do you think DarkZero is going to do with this new potentially aggressive attacker-sided meta?
Yeah, so I mean, we agree, obviously, that this is the way things are going, and we actually think that things are the way things are going to continue to go. So yeah, the switch from hot and cold to NJR was partially to address some of these issues. It was also, though, I would say that's probably a relatively small part of it. When we first signed the squad, we felt like it was a bit rigid, where everybody was sort of really embedded in the roles. We made took a lot of effort to gain more flexibility within the squad. When we signed Eclipse and we signed Skies, those guys do really brought a lot of flexibility to the squad, a lot of leadership to the squad. And now that it felt like, and we sort of recently felt like we were having a hard time codifying our roles. It was sort of like we had a lot of jack of all trades in a way, and not enough specialists. So we had other players who could play the support role, namely Mint, who has struggled in his current role to be the shot caller that he wants to be because of just where he is on the map at any given time, right? So the current idea is that we're rolling him back to support, to help fill that role and help put him in a better spot to IGL. Then we bring in another young gunner. I know a lot of criticism of the squad, and look, we have the same criticism, is that we were struggling with broken rounds. That is something that NJR is an absolute specialist at. NJ knows how to fix a broken round. He's a gunner, but not only that, he's very fluid and adaptive, and he's a playmaker. So we thought bringing those qualities into the team would be helpful with that new meta.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what NJR brings to the team, especially again with this new season that's coming up, the Gone 6, being able to get rid of defender utility. I know that's something that when I play with my squad, it's like, oh, there's a Banshee, oh, now there's an Aruni Gate, now there's this and that and everything else. So it definitely does look like Ubisoft is steering more towards that attacker. And they even said defenders have had power for way too long, and that's true. So it really does seem like Ubi's kind of like, all right, let's flip the switch a little bit. And I think bringing in someone like NJR, like you said, who is a specialist at fixing broken rounds, he's a gunner, he just hits shots. It's kind of like the old joke, like when G2 brought on Kanto, right? And it was like, Kanto, go kill, and then he just went and killed everything. NJR kind of seems like he's going to be your guys' Kanto, where it's like, okay, we know there's a Vigil top floor, NJ, go take care of him, and go do what you need to do.
There's nobody better to go kill with NJ. And him and Hyper, man, that's broken. It shouldn't be legal.
That's gonna be a nasty combo. That's I was talking to my buddy Merc about that one. I was like, yo, NJ and Hyper, and he's like, I would just take that day off. Another question, this time from a Ubisoft dev, Hambo, my good buddy Hambo. Question for Zach: does he have any regrets, and what would he have done differently?
Oh man, how much time you got?
The podcast is slated for an hour, so 6 minutes.
Sure. Sure, man. Gosh, I'm just trying to think of one that I can both share and sticks out above the rest. But I would say, a lot of our first year was mostly regrets. If I had to, I look back at some of our early Twitch content, and it was literally just me, trying to figure out what a funny meme would be and getting shit on online because I put out some really crappy stuff. And
well, wasn't there a time where like you and Chowder were going back and forth about how DarkZero's Twitter was just you with a BlackBerry or something like that? And
yeah, Chowder's my favorite. He's my favorite troll. No, he gives a shit, man. I don't know. He doesn't like our boomer humor, I guess, but
Boomer humor. Wow. We're gonna keep that one around.
That's right. But like I said, man, I mean, we started out just going through a trial by fire, man. Just going through a trial by fire, figuring out what I wanted to make our mistakes small, before we got big. And right. and so yeah, I think that the first year probably we make mistakes all the freaking time, and I don't know. It's that's kind of the only way I know how to learn. I guess my mom told me I'd have to learn the hard way, and I think that's still true.
Never gets easier, Yeah. I mean, that's something I'm starting to learn in life now as I approach boomerdom. I mean, according to internet standards, I'm already a dinosaur. I'm 30, so it's 30 on the internet. You're a dinosaur, man. But all right, well, Zach, I would like to thank you once again for taking time out of your day. We will let you go relax on the Rust server now. You can enjoy the rest of your. But obviously, guys, thank you so much for coming and hanging out as well. The DZ skin in the store right now. Go pick it up. It's an interesting skin. I've had my opinions on it, but I will say this: it's a very intriguing, very interesting skin. Definitely.
You should see our next one.
oh boy, we'll talk off stream. But again, everyone, thank you so much for coming out. I truly do appreciate it. If you guys did follow or anything like that, there's no alerts because this is a clean recording. It's going to go up on YouTube later as well. So anyone who followed or anything like that, I really do appreciate you. Zach, anything you would like to plug or anything like that before we go?
Sure.
I already plugged your skin for you, so
it's amazing. We actually have a Leviathan. It's really cool. If you guys don't know, we hired Deadbird. He's did a whole merch line with the Leviathan skin. So we got a hoodie coming out, t-shirt coming out, and then we actually I think I'll get in trouble if I announce it, but in March we have a really giant event coming. Giant. It's going to be, think what you think it's going to be. It's going to be bigger than that. It's going to be awesome. So stay tuned for that.
All right. So go follow the DarkZero account on Twitter so you guys can keep up to date with that. All right. Well, that's going to do it here, everyone. Again, thank you so much for coming out. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your morning, noon, or night, wherever you are. Good luck. Have fun. My name's Krysis, and we'll see you in the next one.